NHL regular season recap night 166, 8 games tonight. We started off with a huge one between Detroit and Tampa Bay. Pretty much a must-win here for the Red Wings. They were only 2 points back of Washington headed into the game, but the Caps had 2 games in hand. So, again, pretty much a must-win here for the Wings. No goals in the first. Showtime, Patty Kane scores 37 seconds into the second period, but Anthony Cirelli scores shorthanded to tie it about midway through the frame, and we head to the third, knotted at 1, where it's Robbie Fabry, Steven Stamkos, David Perron, and Lucas Raymond on the empty net to make it a 4-2 final here for the Wings. Alex Lyon was huge tonight, 34 of 36 for a 944. Vasi was also pretty solid, 28 of 31 for a 903, but Lyon getting the better of him with his performance, and it's a must-have 2 points for the Wings, 4-2 over Tampa Bay. The Flyers hosting the Islanders in another huge game, both of these teams fighting for their own playoff lives. Noah Cates, Matt Martin, and Bo Horvat scoring in the first. It was 2 goals against on 6 shots for Sam Ersson. So in the second period, we see the NHL debut of Ivan Fedotov, and he looks even bigger in the net than he does in all the interviews he's done to this point. Travis Sanheim scores a beautiful end-to-end goal to start the second to tie us up at 2, but before the end of the frame, Anders Lee with a nice little deflection just over the shoulder of Fedotov makes it a 3-2 game headed into the third period. Fedotov and Varlamov both making some pretty solid saves in the final frame. And then Morgan Frost, with just 10 seconds to go, deflects and then buries home a Jamie Drysdale point shot to force overtime. And then in the overtime, the duality of Morgan Frost, man. A turnover in his own defensive zone. Kyle Palmieri gets it over to Brock Nelson. Frost abandons Brock Nelson trying to block the initial shot past whatever he was doing. And Nelson buries it for the overtime winner. It's a 4-3 win for the Islanders. They still don't gain a playoff spot with this win, but get a little bit closer. Again, Ersson was not good in the first. Fedotov, 19 of 21 for a 905. Varlamov, 30 of 33 for a 909 and the 2 points. The Columbus Blue Jackets hosting the Colorado Avalanche, and if there was a picture definition of what getting goalied looked like, this game would be it. The Avs outshoot Columbus 46-25, but lose by a final score of 4-1. Marchenko, Nylander, and Nylander again scoring in the second period. Marchenko's 20th, and then Nylander's 9th and 10th of the year. You probably want one at least of these 2 Nylander goals back if you're used to saying the Marchenko goal. Not a ton he could do. Wagner would score in the third to make it a 3-1 game, and then Sillinger would score the empty netter to make it a 4-1 game. Annunen I didn't think was bad in this one. Again, he probably wants one of those 2 Nylander goals back, but 21 of 24 for him and 875. But Daniil Tarasov, 45 of 46 for a 978. He had a phenomenal game. It seems like he is completely hit or miss. He has a couple of these games on the year, and of course some pretty bad ones as well. But tonight, definitely getting the better of the Avalanche, and it's a 4-1 win for Columbus. Penguins taking on the Rangers, and despite the fact that this Penguins team is not going to be making the playoffs, Sidney Crosby just keeps on rolling. He scores in the first period. He also assists on Brian Rust's goal, 2-0 after 1. No goals in the middle frame, and then Bemstrom, Kakko, and Roslovic all score in the first 17 minutes of the third to make it a 1-goal game, but Rust and Crosby both score empty netters to extend the lead to 5-2, and it's a victory here for Pittsburgh. Nedeljkovic was pretty solid, 28 of 30 for him. Shesterkin, the less busy of the 2 goalies, goes just 15 for 18 for an 833. Just not quite good enough from him to get the job done here. It's a nice win for the Penguins. It doesn't mean much at this point. This team's not making the playoffs, but good to see Sid still racking up the points despite his team being kind of crap. 5-2 over a very good team is the final. The Leafs taking on the Florida Panthers in a potential playoff preview, and if this is to be a playoff series, please let it go 7 games. Nick Robertson opens the scoring with a beautiful breakaway goal, and then Austin Matthews, his 61st of the year, and one of his easiest, at least that had a goalie in the net, just gets lost backdoor. TJ Brody with a nice pass. He taps it in to make it 2-0 at the end of the first. Brandon Montour make it a 1-goal game 47 seconds into the second, but then Bertuzzi, Kampf, and Nyes all scoring after that to make it 5-1 headed to the third, where, as always, the Leafs find a way to make it interesting, man. Tarasenko, Reinhart, and Bennett all scoring, and it's pretty quickly a 1-goal game with 2 minutes to go. Austin Matthews gets an empty netter, his 62nd of the year, that extends the gap. Thankfully, Leafs fans can stop sweating as much, but it's a 6-4 win. Again, Leafs made it interesting. Would like to have just held on to that 5-1 lead, maybe only make it 5-2, but they get the job done here. Samsonov, pretty solid, 26 of 30. Bobrovsky, not so solid, 11 of 16, for a 688 save percentage. Not his best night by any means. Nonetheless, the Leafs get it done again. 6-4 is the final over their division rivals in Florida. Blues hosting the Oilers in a surprisingly back-and-forth game. Ekholm in the first, Braden Shen on the power play in the second. Shen again just a minute 44 into the third, and then Leon Draisaitl, his 39th of the year, ties us up with about 5.5 to go in the third period. And then some fantastic saves between this point and the end of the game for Jordan Binnington. He ended up going 36 for 38, while Stuart Skinner 26 for 29. But in the overtime, Brandon Saad scores the game winner, his 25th of the year, and it's a 3-2 overtime win for the Blues. I don't think this team's getting into the playoffs at this point either, but the 2 points are still big for them nonetheless. We'll see if they can chase down Vegas. It's a 3-2 win for them tonight over a very strong Edmonton team. The Jets taking on the Kings, and finally in this one, the Jets snapped their losing skid. Cole Perfetti and Victor Arvidsson trading goals in the first. Fiala, Monahan, Kopitar, and Morrissey all trading goals in the second, so we're knotted at 3, headed to the third, and then in the third frame, Cole Perfetti, his second of the game, is the only goal of the period, and Winnipeg comes away with this one with the 2 points. It's a 4-3 win over Los Angeles, and neither goalie gets above the 900 mark. Laurent Brossoit, 25 of 28 for an 893, and Cam Talbot, 28 of 32 for an 875, but despite the sub-900 performance, Brossoit will certainly take the 2 points. Nashville was starting to creep up on this Jets team, so important that they got those 2 points, but they get it done over this LA team who's also fighting for their divisional spot, and after this one, they do lose it to Vegas. 4-3 in Winnipeg is the final. Final game of the night here, the Sharks hosting the Seattle Kraken, a game that doesn't mean all too much for either of these two teams, but the better team does get the W. Beniers, Bjorkstrand, Zetterlund, and Wright all scoring in the first. Klim Kostin in the second, and then Jared McCann on the empty net in the third. It's a 4-2 victory for Seattle. Not really a ton to discuss in this one. Good to see Shane Wright getting his first of the year, though. Grubauer, 24-26 for a 923. Blackwood, 28 of 31 for a 903. Both goalies pretty good. Game kind of went the way it should have. It's a 4-2 final for the Kraken, and that is it for NHL regular season recap night 166. We have another 8 games tonight on Tuesday, so good to see that. Well done by the schedule makers for once. We'll talk to you guys in a bit.